6, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Daryl and Jessie are onto their third project for the year, and it's a beauty, a Panzer I, and it's going to be a runner. The boys made a start on this vehicle in 2019, but the project was put on hold until we could obtain some more parts. Unfortunately, the pandemic and the recent conflict in Ukraine have meant that we're going to have to proceed with what we have. Luckily, we have quite a bit.
The lower hull is made up of new steel and a mixture of old parts that we've managed to source. The same with the fighting compartment. But our whole engine deck is entirely original. The turret's original too. We're going to try and model the suspension off original. We've got some leaf springs and that we can copy. The engine and the drive line will be whatever we can make work in the limited area we've got. But it'll probably just be a little car engine. And we are toying with the idea of having the final drives run on hydraulics.
It's going to be a little bit of a challenge because, like I said, we don't really have plans or schematics or anything like that. We've got one original swing arm that we can copy, so that's going to be really handy. We've also got one final drive sprocket, and I think we've got one rear idler. I think. We've actually forgotten, like me and Darryl were saying before, we've forgotten all about this because we did this all 3 years ago. Yeah. Have to do some more study on the Panzer Is for sure.
So sit back, relax and enjoy the entire process of the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum's restoration of this Panzer I. To kick off the build, Jessie starts by disassembling the road wheels.
These are original Panzer I road wheels. They're a lot smaller and a lot lighter than what we're used to working on, which is good. These are actually cast aluminium.
Wait, really?
Yeah, these are cast aluminium.
Like with all our builds, Jessie has had to fabricate a wacky looking tool to help undo the caps on these wheels. But things don't always go according to plan.
You know what the painful thing is?
What?
That first one just spun straight off. Like straight off.
You save this one for some good content.
It won't be too hot. Yeah, there we go. No.
That crack was causing us a lot of trouble. Hopefully the other road wheels aren't as bad.
Waffen stamp.
There we go. Another one of them. This should be able to loosen up easily.
You just knock around.
Yeah. A spacer. I think this is like a brass or a copper washer. I'll put this on, we should better spin it off.
How big is this thing? Oh, out he comes.
There you go.
Just think, the last time this was opened was nearly 90 years ago when it was first assembled.
And it's just immaculate, like the day that they put it all together in the factory. So I'm knocking the inner bearing out. See the casting line? Yeah. This has been cast and then top's been machined to make sure it's the right size. They've also machined in here too. We pulled a few Panzer IV wheels apart and we were finding these cast steel ones, and then there was fabricated ones, and then there was also timber ones.
We're a little bit worried about the rubber on some of these wheels, but luckily we found a place we could send them to in Toowoomba that could put some new ones on. But first, the old tyres have to be taken off. While Daz and the museum director were doing this, we noticed that we actually had two different types of wheels. One has tyres bonded to a steel band that presses onto the wheel, and the other has bonding grooves machined onto it, removing the need for the rubber tyre to have a separate band.
We should film the easy one, Curtis.
Oh, that's good, that's just come off one go then.
Glued on or something?
Got bonded on.
You peel that back again, I'll do the digging. Yeah, I don't share the shop, mate, part of my contract.
Daryl's a star.
I thought they were all one solid one. They're obviously, those spokes come through, there's supports in them.
We've placed the order for new wheel bearings, now we just have to wait for the damaged ones to be retired and sent back to us. We only have one front drive sprocket, but Daryl has a plan for a replacement.
We've got a sprocket on a hub here that makes the final drive for the Panzer I. We're going to get the new hub made and a new sprocket. I'm just going to cut off all these bolts with the oxy, then separate it. Probably the first time it's been apart in 90 odd years. Yeah, we pulled this one apart. This is an original hub that we've got, but we've only got one, and that's our issue. We're going to press one of these using 3 parts. We've got our lower die, the piece that we're going to press and dish, and our top die, which will go down and push through. Bo's done a bit of this stuff before, so I'm relying on Bo. He's going to help me out here.
This is sort of the crucial bit, trying to just line everything up, get it as good as you can.
Sometimes when pressing steel like this, it wants to grab and can throw the dies out of alignment. A little bit of lubrication can help prevent this.
Ready to start her up?
Back up to about 47 again by a little bit. Yep.
They've pressed a little bit too far, but with a gentle press on the other side, they should be able to get it to the height they need.
Not too crucial now.
So 53.
53?
Yep, a bit more. 49. 49, eh? That's what you wanted.
That's exactly what you wanted.
Yep.
What's that in inches?
Just under 2 inches.
Exactly what we wanted.
Exactly what Bo said we'd get. Thank you, Bo. I love it when Bo makes me look good.
The original was pressed out of one piece of metal with a die and then machined. Setting up a press like that would take way too much time, so Jesse is finishing off the hub by welding in an inner and an outer ring. Once the welds are ground back and everything is machined, you would be very hard pressed to see a difference between the two. The distance between the hull and the centre of the track is probably one of the most critical aspects to this build, so the dimensions of the sprocket have to be as precise as possible. To do this, Jesse skims the surface of the hub off with the milling machine to make it level and the correct width. It turns out the original sprocket was not safe to use, so when we sent our CAD drawings to Cash Core Engineering, we had two cut at the same time in their water cutter.
I've got the drawing of what we're cutting already preloaded, and this gives me an indication where they are on our piece of steel. It looks like sand up the top there. It's garnet coming through with the water pressure, about 5,500 psi.
The main advantage of water jetting over plasma or laser is that there's very little heat involved, so the quality of the steel remains unchanged. And so, with pixel perfect accuracy, the cutter is away. The main drawback to water jet cutting is that it's quite a bit slower, but speeding things up by 100 times in the editing software will help that out a bit. Rob and the crew were legends for letting us film there. Cash Core's machine workers and boilermakers finished these sprockets off beautifully. Their workshop has a lot more heavy-duty equipment. They machined this groove, beveled the teeth and drilled out the holes in no time at all. Even with a few things outsourced, there's still a heap of stuff to make.
What we're making here is the very front road wheel swing arm. It's locked in with a shock absorber and a shocker dampener. We want to keep the original shaft if we can, so we'll have a shaft that runs through in here and it'll be welded in position. We'll take this over to Glenn. He'll have a go at turning it down to what we want. How are you, mate? I've got a job for you.
Glenn has to turn this block of metal into a tapering cylinder, adhering to really precise measurements that we were able to obtain from overseas off an original. The patience and focus required for a precision job like this is just mind-blowing to me. 2 days solid on the lathe, and there you have it, a beautifully turned out brand new swing arm.
That's it.
That'll get him out of trouble.
Here we go, Daryl.
Ah, perfect, mate. As always, very, very nice. Yep.
Ready?
Yep. Beautiful.
How's that, right?
Yep, I'll just grind these ends, these pieces off that we put there so we can hold in the chuck.
Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Well done, mate. Okay.
Thanks, Glenn.
Hey, thank you.
It hasn't only been Glenn on the lathe. Daryl has also been hard at work on the one in his shed as well.
This is our front drive sprocket hub, and it's taken a bit to work out, but we're finally there, we think. It's going to work. We want to get these front sprockets on because that'll set the proper width of this actual vehicle. If we're out 2 or 3 mil, we can adjust everything as we go backwards. We're going to use a 3 bearing system because it's got a lot of tension on the side because it's driving a chain. So we've got 2 standard bearings towards the front of the hub, And then in against the wall, we've got a roller tapered bearing, because that way we can tension it up a bit more. I've got Glenn next door just to cut these threads. And then we had to use an outside company to do these keyways for us. Step one is I just want to put a bit of oil on this shaft, right, because we're going to have to drop 2 bearings and a seal through it. This is the space between the 2 bearings, and it runs on the inner race of the bearing. And he'll just go in, bit of oil, and just position in there. Now I'll put the seal in, and just gently tap the seal in place. So I'm a bit worried whether the heat might do something to this seal, but when we finish with it, we'll pull it apart and have a good look. We just need to put it together to actually weld. We have to have the shaft in it to weld it all together. So that should all turn. It's a bit firm. It's probably just got another 1/2 mil to be tapped in. But when we tighten up the bearing, the final bearing, that should all pull in nice and tight. I'll give it another tap. Got to remember to do everything in sequence because we don't want to pull it apart again. So what I'll do now is I'll put this outer housing on. We've got a spacer between the roller taper bearing and this housing, the body of the housing. So he'll go in there. I'm calling this the inner housing, that's the outer housing. So that'll go in on top there. Rightio. So all we've got left now is to put this roller taper bearing on. Right. We'll take this out and grease it up before we actually use it for driving, but that's gone in okay. Everything seems to be turning all right. So the way we lock in this taper roller here is with this flange. We'll put a grease nipple in here so we can keep that greased. That goes on there. And then last of all, we've got a lock ring here. At this stage, this could basically all just lift off. But these lock rings, we'll have a double lock ring with a washer, very fine thread, so you've got to be careful putting them on. Jess will step in now and he'll work his magic. He's going to put a couple of tacks around here and under here, and then this will all become one unit then. It'll be all welded together. He'll flip it over and drop it onto this plate here.
Get your hand out. Yep. Sand it on there pretty good. Yeah.
Jesse slowly fully welded the final drive hubs for both sides, always being mindful not to overheat and warp the pieces, throwing all that careful measuring out. Now all that remains is to fit it to the hull.
Good. Happy with it so far.
Yeah.
Part of what makes this vehicle so special is the way Daryl and Jesse have designed and problem solved their way through this build, using as many original parts as we have and replicating what we're missing as perfectly as possible.
So that's the inside. Okay. Last
Here
one.
we are. With original nylock nuts.
That's it. We don't want it coming loose, do we?
No.
Beautiful.
The drive sprockets are exactly how we want them. Now the boys can move to the rear of the vehicle to set up the rear idler system. So the units come back off and we flip the tank upside down to make it easier to work on. This time we have no original parts to work with for our rear idlers, except the wheels. So once again, Daryl plays Panzer I design and construct.
We didn't have any of this rear idler gear. We've had a few pictures that we've been able to copy, or it's very similar to what's on the back of a Panzer IV in the design. So we've kind of just used that knowledge to put into this unit here. This is the axle that will have the actual idler wheel on it, and this is the one that will be on the tank itself. The track will be loose if we go that way, and the track will be tighter as we pull it back this way. We've put one side of the housing in. This is the other side, which will go into the body that we're about to fit onto the tank. So that will give us 2 points for our shafts. One's 85, one's 65. Now we have to work out a way to tension it. On a Panzer IV, they have what's called a Hertz ring. And it's a really intricate piece of machining, which we can't do in-house here.
It's spring loaded, isn't it?
And it's also spring-loaded. So we've had to come up with something that we can do in-house. So what we came up with was we've made these little gadgets here. 10mm mild steel with 16mm mild steel little blocks fitted into it. They've been placed in to the right height we want. We've tacked the corners, and then Jess has gone along and TIG welded them all in place, so they're super strong. That gets bolted onto the housing, so that's fixed at the rear of the tank. This is situated roughly there. We have to get a spline here and one that'll match it here on this shaft. Then we're going to have a thread cut here, and then this will be machined to a hex nut, and that's how we actually tension it and turn it.
So you'll have a tool that locks onto this that enables you to twist it.
Yeah, we'll be able to lift it up as we tension this around.
Excellent.
So with the spline cut in here and here, it will then go on the shaft and engage in these little blocks here, so it'll keep its tension. It's a couple of weeks designing it, turning things on the lathe, getting stuff cut. So yeah, a bit of time involved.
It'll be a couple of months, more like.
Let's get that other bit done.
He's too modest to admit it, but Daryl has indeed spent several months designing and turning out all these shafts, collars and axles on the lathe. The ultimate test will be everything going together and working as intended.
Bit of spray on it.
A little bit of spray, yep. Bit of lube. Oh, look at that, there you go.
Yep. Right, so
I'm going to put the other one together.
This has to line up exactly with the line the front drive sprocket has given us. For this to work, everything has to be square.
square against there, what do you think?
Can do.
Well, that doesn't look too bad. It looks straight down there.
Wow, nice one.
So that's not going to be too bad for what we want. See how that's easy? Right, pull him back. Right, if I lift that, that's good like that. If you get a tack, say here,
Yep.
and
one
there.
Yep.
The heat from welding is warping and pulling the two housing collars out of alignment, which is causing the shaft to bind up. So Jesse is going to cut the welds away and slowly tack his way around the piece, while Daryl tries to hold and wedge it in the sweet spot.
That's the best it's been, right?
They take a break from this unit and move on to the opposite side, again, starting with alignment.
I'm happy with that.
I'll let you draw, I can't see.
Yep.
How we like it. Right on there?
Yep.
83.5.
84. That's
yeah.
good. Yeah.
Alright, perfect. Yep, that worked out okay then.
How things line up.
They line up.
Back down there, do you want to put one here? And another one here. That's alright.
The boys got it in one. With a win under their belt, they head back to the first unit.
Redo it. This one down. Right, so, beautiful. Oh, well that's the best yet out of it. Right. Good, so get one there, or we can always cut it super easy. Yep.
How's it feel compared to the other one?
Oh, the other one's like it's got bearings in it. Give it a go, Jeff.
And it keeps momentum pretty much.
Dead level.
Very happy with that one.
I think this one's not far off it, but hey, look. It's all trial and error, some of this stuff. So, yeah,
It's great when it works out.
when it works out.
These pieces had to have a spline and a keyway cut into them. We don't have that sort of capability here, but Northern Engineering does, and they kindly let me join one of their machinists, Adam, and allowed me to catch the last part of the process. They've already machined a hex head in, cut in the thread, and made a keyway for a locking tab, but there's still a little bit of the spline left to cut. The female component of the idler wheels needs the corresponding spline cut in. For this, Adam uses a different tool.
Not bad.
Alright. That's comfortable. You've just got back with them, eh?
Yep.
Let's see what we've got.
Let's have a look.
I'm really interested to see how they've turned out. I marvel at some of this, how some of these blokes do this stuff, eh?
Looking good, Daryl?
Yeah, well, mate, I'm wrapped with it. This is Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've got our hex shape at the end. That's so we can actually turn and tighten or untighten the track.
For when you make a tool for it, right?
Yeah, we'll probably just get a big socket. We've got a big socket set here. I asked him to make it to a metric socket, so
Yep.
looks like he's done that.
He's got some thread in the center.
Yeah, a bit of thread. That's where our two locking rings will go on, and that groove's there to take a lock washer.
Ready to go.
Ready.
With these shafts finally finished, Jess can go ahead and test fit them. If they all go back together okay and don't need any adjustments, he can weld them up, assemble, and call them done.
So this is the first piece that we got to put on. Loosen them a little bit.
Yeah, this is a little stub axle. So that goes on like that. Bit of a collar. Then next up we've got our wheel. Here's one I prepared earlier. Well, we didn't have any original little hubcaps, so we've had to make our own. This edge here just pressures on the outer rim of the bearing. Got a lock ring, a washer, and a nut. And then this one just goes on and gets held on with 6 bolts. And that should have our rear idler.
A few weeks ago, we sourced an engine for this project. When it arrived, Steve got to work testing it out to make sure it actually worked.
It's out of I think like a 1996 Toyota Hilux, so it should be perfect for what we want. Good, reliable, reasonable power and torque, easy, simple. Once we put it in, we basically just set and forget it. We're just going to try and jury rig it up so that we can start it and make sure that the thing runs, because we don't want to go through all the effort of building all the mountings, adapting it to the drive system and everything just to find that the engine doesn't work. This is probably going to look the dodgiest set of wiring ever.
I don't know if it'll be the dodgiest wiring ever.
Fingers crossed. Let's see if we can make some noise. I don't think it's getting fuel. Well, instead of going at it like a bull in a china shop, I took a bit of time to look at the wiring plug for the fuel shut-off solenoid and realised that I had the wrong pin connected up. So I'll fix that up. Pump's working, shut-off's connected, starter's connected. Do a little rain dance or a little jig to see if we can get it to start.
Hey,
So it's a runner.
it's a runner.
It's a runner.
How good is that?
We have an engine. Now to mount it.
So this frame is able to be lifted out and lifted back in when we need to. It's going to be bolted to the floor. So our hydraulic motor will be actually driving this vehicle. By doing it hydraulically, we're eliminating the tail shaft. You've got less things that need to be fitted. We can put the motor however we want in this vehicle. We don't have to line it up with the front of it or anything. It can be spun around, which is actually how we're going to be mounting this. Similar to like what a car would be. So with the fan, radiator fan at the front. So this will be the same thing. So we'll be pulling cool air through the vehicle and pushing it out the rear. So we've had an adapter plate drawn up. This part here that we've got made is a socket. You can see it's got like a spline. So this goes onto our hydraulic motor. So that just keys in, just moves in like that and then pushes on like that. So this will be bolted to the flywheel and that will be bolted to the crankshaft. So this is how we're going to be powering our actual hydraulic motor. So we're using the original bell housing. The reason for that being is that Steve, our mechanic, wants to use the original starter motor that came with it. This works by holding it all in place so it will line up on the ring gear to start the engine. It's got some locating lugs on it. We have a local hydraulic guy who's supplied all of our parts. He did all the calculations, worked out how much pressure we need, and we've just got to do the part of fitting them pretty much. None of the smart stuff, we leave that for someone else.
Jesse has just finished the engine mounts and is finally ready to fit it to the hull. As you can see, he's finished the bell housing and attached the hydraulic motor system that will be used to power and steer the tank.
Just got to come to the platform. Yeah.
Yep.
Jesse's doing these bolts up with an impact driver for now, but he'll be going over them with a compressed air rattle gun before we close everything up. While Jesse was working on the engine mounts, Daryl was putting the finishing touches on the mounts for the chain drives.
This is our little hydraulic motor. We've just made a little frame for it that we can adjust up, because what we're using is a double link chain, basically just a big glorified bike chain. We can adjust it and make it whatever size we want. So we made this little sliding frame here where it can just slide backwards and forwards. We've tightened up where we want it. We'll lock these bolts in place and put a witness mark on them so we'll know that if they ever move. As we get the tension of the chain, we're probably going to need to use the bolts to pull it tight enough so there's no slack in it. Last thing we want is these chains jumping off while we're driving.
Jesse really has had to take his time welding these mounts in. It's critical that both chain sprockets line up perfectly.
We don't have a lot of room. So we're just going to line these sprockets up with the motor.
How are you doing that?
So we're just measuring off the wall here. So we're measuring to the outside of this sprocket here, and then we're measuring to the inside of the sprocket here. Closer.
After carefully checking and rechecking, Jess is happy enough with his measurements to tack it into place. Now Daryl's chain tightening system comes into play.
Yep. Roughly around there.
To keep it over like, so right over the whole lot.
Oh, hold on.
Yep. So that's fair. Tighten it.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Not too tight.
No, just right.
Lindsay and Aidan from Parrot Engineering are fitting all of the hoses from the little hydraulic motor on the back of the engine to the steering unit and then to the chain drives. We know it's not how things would have been done, of course. If we'd have been able to source an original Panzer I gearbox, differential, drive shaft and all in perfect working condition, then of course we would have acquired one and fitted it. Some people will say that it's not even worth going to all this trouble if it's not original. But honestly, myself and everyone here would much rather see this little beauty driving around the track at AusArmour Fest than have it sitting as an empty static display. You might have seen Silvio in previous episodes. He's a German backpacker with an engineering background and has been a fantastic help to Steve and the rest of the crew, with some great knowledge.
It's like we almost finished the most part of the panel and the relay stuff. We cut the most of this cable off, and then we take every single cable of those out and put it in a single connector, and all those connectors are then like in one socket. So you just have one socket to plug out if you want to remove the whole panel. You also see here that I did some changes because I needed to know how the alternator was functioning. So yeah, that's why we're like
A lot of different revisions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Looks good.
It actually looks really complicated to me, but I'm sure if you know what you're doing, it's very straightforward. With everything wired in, the hydraulic system primed and the engine securely mounted, we decide it's time for a test run. Oh, one thing before we forget.
Let me just check if there's a rag in there.
How cool is that, Daryl?
Gotta be happy with that.
Yeah, man. It's a bit unconventional for World War II equipment, but
Yeah.
it'll do the job.
If they could have done it, they would have, mate.
100%. That's what I was just thinking.
For reliability and for what we want this to do, this is the best option.
This is the
and
way.
and to find those original parts in running condition, near impossible.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah.
If only we had our suspension units, then we could have a cheeky drive. But good things come to those who wait. Speaking of suspension units, let's see how Jesse went about making them up. We could only obtain one original bogie, but we were lucky even to get this one. Without it, we would be relegated to guessing and scaling measurements off model kit instructions and photos. By carefully examining this original unit, Jesse was able to decipher how it was constructed and broke it down into different parts that we could bend, weld and shape together to replicate it as closely as possible. After drawing up these components in CAD and sending them off to our steel supplier, all that remains now that we have them is to put it all together.
So this piece starts there, comes there, bends down, goes around, goes on the inside, bends up, goes around the pipe, and then finishes through on the end. So we'll fold that around now. One more bend. That sits just above. So happy with that.
Tacking.
Tacking. Yeah.
Cut it at 51.
Yeah, okay, saves you bending it.
Yeah,
It's ready to go.
So you can see, so that's that part bent in. We're just joining it. Oh my god.
Oh no, good drill bit, hey.
Yeah. So this is on the end of here, it's like a bump stop, an external one. So what they've actually done is you can see they've heated up here and they've pulled it around on both sides and then they've put a filler piece on the inside.
Oh wow.
I had some plate outside that was accessible, so I've decided to just cut into it, taper it, and we'll just trim these ends and just put that in there like that. Just a hell of a lot easier. The next part, we've actually got some U-bolts that we've found. These go in like that, out the top, and bolt on.
Right.
And they clamp the spring in.
Yep.
So the spring is actually held in on the end here via the bolt. So that's what we're making now. We've got to make these holders. Scroll it through. So the final bit is trimming this a little bit more, just trimming it out and then just slipping our pieces in that are getting laser cut. It's just a bit of flat plate. We've drawn it so it fits in that shape. So we'll just slide it in and tack it on. So once our pieces go on, they'll bolt on like that. And that holds the spring hanger in.
After a few days, Jesse has all these pieces welded in, but there are still a few components to go.
Daryl's spent the last half a week, nearly a week, turning up all the shafts. So this piece here goes in this piece here. So this will be welded in like that. You can see it's got a shoulder it presses up to. This is like a spacer washer crush block. Like that. You can see they press in firm. This is what comes out of our hull, and this shaft here actually rocks back and forth. So that's our rocker, our main rocker, and then you've got this pin at the back here will actually hold one of the wheels on. So that goes in here. This one again, this one's C, slides in that way.
We put in the order for our leaf springs in January 2024, and we were initially told they would be a month in production. So when did we get them back? Fortunately, we were blissfully unaware at the time, so the boys kept on working on other things.
We're working on the rear deck and where the exhaust protective cover comes on and the muffler itself comes out. And as you can see, it's got 3 mounting points. But what we have here is 3 broken off bolts that we've got to get out. That bit just went blunt, eh?
Just then.
Yep. Must be split slightly.
You might have to hit it with a hammer.
Oh, it's engaged, but do we want to quench it or that'll just make it harder?
Quenching it might make it harder, yeah.
No, that one didn't work. That might be a plan B. Got to remember these things have probably been in since 1935, 36, you know, who knows how long they've been in there. No, that's not going to work either.
No go, Daryl.
No, no go. We've got one more to try. Try quench it, yeah, give it a go. No, that didn't work. No.
I'm not a fan of those.
Yeah, I know, these aren't the best things to use. Anybody that's ever used these easy outs knows that it's hit and miss, so.
There's nothing easy about it.
No, I'll only snap it off if I keep going. Oh.
Okay, I'll get a little bit of W.
There we go.
Before I weld it.
Stick that under the tank.
Oh, sorry, Daryl. Whoops. Okay, one out.
Well, that worked.
There's a little bit of movement.
Oh, hold on.
Did you get something?
Yep.
Over 80 years.
Yep. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do it. Once you've exhausted all your other ways and means.
Isn't that how you put them in when you did your apprenticeship? Jess has got check.
Well done, Jess. Look at that, magic.
That was all we did.
What we want to do is now, we've got a bottom tap, 10mm bottom tap. We'll go through and tidy up all the holes. This one had a bit of old grease in it by the look of it.
Oh, is that grease? You didn't put that on?
No, that's just coming out of it, look.
Oh, you're kidding.
So we don't know where these things have been in the last 70 odd years, what they've done, where they've been. They're all coming up good.
What's this hole here, Daryl?
Well, I reckon that's the whole reason that they have an armour protective cover. I reckon that's a bullet hole. You can see where it's actually done some little cracks there and the bullet's penetrated through there.
Wow.
So,
What is that, 15mm armour? 10mm armour?
it's about ½ inch armour on the back. Well, it might be slightly, it might be 15, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. We're hoping the armour cover will give us an idea of where the centre line is of the muffler. Because we don't actually have anything that gives us that measurement at the moment.
Yeah.
Can you roughly get a
It took a little bit of skillful workshop geometry, but we eventually found the centre line, and from that we could get to work on building and mounting the muffler.
So I made these brackets before and prefabbed it all and fitted it. So this just pokes in like that. I've tacked that bracket on before, has a bit of a dog leg, goes around and then gets welded onto there. We sourced this, which is the closest thing that we could find. So what we're going to do is we're going to try squash this in our press a little bit and then just weld some fins in.
Have you got a few?
What's this, sorry?
Backup ones?
Backup ones? No, we got one.
We got one shot at this.
One shot at this, so
to get it perfect.
Got to make sure it's right. So what we'll do is we'll tack this on, and once it's actually on the muffler, I can pull the muffler off and we can panel beat and fix this.
That's a great little freehand circle.
Sometimes I cut neat. Are we happy?
Yep. Oh, your earth. Just kidding.
Oh, I nearly cried then. Tears are rolling down my face. Work with me. Please, go up. Doesn't happen very often, but I'm happy.
Jess got it all welded up the next morning, ready for assembly. Of all the original parts to have survived these last 90 or so years, this one is one of the most remarkable. It's a Panzer I exhaust guard, really beat up, but still usable. Thin material like this is almost always scrapped or has disintegrated into rust. With some careful bashing and heating, the boys get it back into a more presentable shape.
Have a look at that side and you jump over here and look at this side, yeah?
That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Just a little bit. Yep. Yeah, leave that there.
With the suspension springs still a few weeks away, Daryl moved on to the mudguards. If you know your German tanks well, no doubt you're already furiously writing in the comments about the pattern of the sheet we've used. Early war German tanks used this special patterned aluminium sheeting. When this episode initially aired, we had some very helpful viewers point out to us that this pattern of sheet is still actually commercially available in Europe, but with the time remaining to us to get the project finished, we decided to use checker plate. Besides that, Daryl handmade all the latches and other details you can see, and you cannot deny he has done a splendid job.
What do we have here, Daryl?
Mate, what we've been waiting for, got the springs. Look at those babies. Very happy to see them.
They're all perfect.
Well, we hope so.
Pristine. So they're the originals, right?
They're the originals, yeah, what we had. We didn't want to run the risk that one of the two of them might break, so we've got all brand new ones made. So
gorgeous.
By a local company up on the tablelands, not far from us. So
Gee, we've waited long enough, eh?
Yeah, we have indeed. You can see there's a bolt hole here. And that bolt there just drops into it. Right, specially designed tool to go under here. Keep it at the right height. Now I won't over tighten these because we've still got to try and line up to get our axle through on the end. Right. So let's see if we can struggle with the other one as well.
And that's it. Oh, with the U-bolt now.
Yeah, just the U-bolt. You can see one's higher than the other. But I can adjust, pull down on the U-bolt here, tighten it up, and then that'll pull this down to line them up. Because we've still got to put an axle through. This is where the second axle runs through to hold the wheel. So the wheel's in here and one in here. If these are two different lengths or out a couple of mil, the wheel will be running out of parallel. So we're just going to, once we put the wheels on, we're doing a final adjustment on them. So now I'll swing it around the right way, hopefully. It's pretty tight, this one. You can see now how the bump stop works. With the spring will come up if it hits anything and work on that bump stopper. We need 10 wheels for this vehicle and we had 11, but they weren't the world's best wheels and we're limited. You're just not going to find them anywhere. So you may see some strange things on them, like we've had to actually weld these in because they were missing part of the thread. Once we've got the bearings fitted, it actually weld in these locking rings. We don't have any oil seals in that, so that's why we're using nylon washers. And we only had one of these axles to get a rough idea on how it went, and it was blown apart too, and it's all damaged on the ends and that, so we've had to knock up them. This one on the opposite side we had to manufacture, and at the rear we had original ones. We had a couple of old springs, so we had to get the springs remade. That was an issue in itself, but we've got them now, so hopefully everything's going to come together.
Jesse was away for the week, but luckily Ron was in a bit of a lull with the Grant tank restoration and was able to give Daz a hand.
Do I need a hammer and a punching angle, or do you think I can slide it in? Well, you can take it out to start with and we'll try and line the hole up a bit better. Look at that. Can you see? Yeah, you're half a hole out. Now you're getting close. Yeah, 10 mil, that's it. A spacer between the bearings. It's going to have to move up. Stop.
So what are we encountering here, Daryl? What's happened?
We're encountering a bit of resistance. We've been trying to hit it through, and I think the spacer, there's a spacer between the two bearings. It's catching on that, it's not riding up on the spacer. And I just want to hone out these housings here. We might have damaged the edges a bit, just trying to get it through. Yeah. We can get a shaft through from this side, but we can't get it back through the other way.
Yeah, with the wheel on.
Yeah, so...
Make more room.
Make a little bit more room.
Daryl also adds a bevel onto the shaft, just to help it go in even easier.
Oh, look at that taper.
Just wheel the wheel up on the wedge a bit more. Leave the swing arm where it is. Hold on, is it hitting in there?
We decided to leave that wheel for now and move on. It turned out there was just a little bit of weld in the way that was easily ground back.
Level now. I like to pre-fit things so we don't run into this type of thing.
This is the pre-fit.
Yeah.
The fitting pre-fit.
The pre-fit. Out, yep. There's an in and an out. Up or down?
Oh, the suspension unit's you've got to go up by heaps.
Up.
No, that's down.
Well, make up your
I
mind.
said
You want me to
you've
go
got to
up or down?
You've got to go up by heaps.
That's going down.
It's going up. I see the jack going up from here.
I think he's talking about the jack going up by heaps.
Well, I said you've got to go up.
Stop for a second. Right, give it 2 or 3 more hits. Stop. This is where we're going to run into. Right, try hit that. Stop.
That's coming through.
Stop. Just give it gentle taps. Yep.
Synchronized bashing.
That's it. Right.
Wow, looks good.
Gotta be happy with getting at least one on today.
A few days later, and Daryl got all of the wheels on. Considering we didn't have shop drawings or any kind of design literature to help make all this running gear, you really have to admire the work Daryl and Jesse have done to make all this basically from scratch.
These U-bolts that hold the springs in, if we over tighten them one way or the other, that will push the wheel off centre. See it moving across or back. So what we're going to do now is very delicately adjust it. See the wheel moving in?
Yeah, yep.
Well, we want to be about 184. So I've got to go through and adjust. See, there's no pressure on that now. So I'll have to tighten up the ones inside. And that should bring the wheel back out. So we're just going to go along and just carefully adjust it, then check them to make sure they're all in line, and it should be good to go.
Should be.
Should be.
All the wheels are on. Now it's time to put the suspension units to the test by taking it off the stands and putting the full weight of the superstructure and turret on. We still have to make the front shock absorbers, but if the vehicle is level and close to the ground clearance that we need, this will be a big win for us. So far, so good.
Just not slipping in yet. Now it is. Right.
The original turret we have, which was the first piece we acquired for the project, was fairly complete and didn't need much work to it at all. It's going to be in a fixed position for now, but if we ever happen across a turret ring that fits, we may consider fitting it in later.
Side shift over a bit.
That's it. We lift it up.
Before the boys started going over the track, they give the road wheels and return rollers a bit of a grease up.
Yep, stop there.
Daryl also fitted the front shock absorbers on the weekend.
One's a coil, like normal suspension spring you'd see, and the other one's what I believe is an Armstrong system. The coil spring is to take the initial shock, and the actuator arm that works with the pistons is try to assist with returning it either way, just to take some of the sharp shock out of it.
The coil spring was from a hot rod upgrade kit, and we're pretty sure the piston was from a Chevrolet Blitz. This is original Panzer I series track. It was somewhat of a miracle that we were able to acquire the correct amount, but it's not in the best condition. After long use, some track pins can get bent out of shape, and even the holes they go through in the link can get misaligned. Add to that 80 years worth of rust, and it can be very tricky to work with. But once we get it on and take the tank for a drive, it should loosen everything up nicely.
Just check that in that twist. What's going on here?
Oh, that's fine. No problem at all.
These are falling in now.
The next day was a big one, the fitting of the track and the first test drive. Firstly, we'll pull the tank onto the track, then hook the end onto the drive sprocket, throw it in reverse and pull the track on using the power of the vehicle. Well, that's the theory anyway.
That looks different.
In our reference material, it says the vehicle takes 100 links, but this is probably factory fresh new track. Over time, track stretches, and over the length of 100 links, this can lead to a lot of slack. The boys are going to need to take a few links out to get the right tension.
If it moves, we're in with a chance. You sure you don't want to take 3?
You can take 3 if you want.
There's just one little problem. These links haven't been worked on and are pretty tight. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get them apart.
Second one.
Yep. That one's got movement on it.
I'll get the door on now. You pull it. Mickey Juice works.
Ooh. The mists of forgetfulness.
You can sort of make out how distorted this pin is, which is what's making it so tricky to get out.
Apparently the book is wrong. It says 100.
Here, Jesse is using a thinner piece of round bar to help punch it through. To join the track back up, we're using a set of World War II US Army track connecting tools.
Got your pins started?
Yep.
Do you want me to put this on this side?
How far up is it?
I think you're going to need it.
This is awkward to get in here, isn't it?
Yeah. Good.
Right, we're in.
Did it! On to the next one, huh?
On to the next one.
Straight out. You could get a job at the Panzer Corps, mate.
This one came out a lot easier because this was a section they joined with new pins earlier.
You've got to have that bend down.
Yeah.
Alright, if you set yours up now on the other side.
It's time.
Thank God.
Without any further ado, after some off-camera track tensioning, it was time for its first test drive. The hill very much, and it's having a little bit of trouble turning on one side. So the boys are going to make a few adjustments to the chain drive, tweak some settings on the hydraulic motor, and let a bit more power out from the engine.
Might need to go tight, and that might help you with your steering.
I would say we need to tighten this one.
Yeah.
For the final paint job, we went with Panzer Grey and the markings for the 1st Panzer Division. You might be wondering why we painted a later war bar cross symbol instead of the early war white version, since this is an early tank. Well, that's because on one of our original hatches, some of the paint has survived and shows the same later war variant of bar cross. This makes a lot of sense, since the bulk of our parts came from regions of the former Soviet Union. Everything has been adjusted up since the first test drive. Now it's time to fuel up and get this vehicle out on the track for a proper run. And to give Daryl a go too. after a very successful test drive, there's just one final detail to go.
See the little cutouts there?
Yeah.
Allow it to go past the sight block?
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah. We didn't even notice it until we started. Main one here locks across, clamps in, and another one at the back. Here they've got a little cover to go above the sight block. Very happy.
Happy, Daryl?
Yeah, very happy. I think Jess and I have done not a bad job.
I agree. I think it's better than just not bad. But
Tony's in the background pointing at him going, and Tony helped out.
Tony helped out as
Helped
well.
out.
Good on you, Tony. Hey, congratulations. Dazzle looks fantastic.
No, thank you very much.
This project took a lot longer than expected and was extremely challenging. To have engineered so much of the running gear from scratch is a real testament to the skill and talent of Daryl and Jesse. But of course they couldn't have done it alone. The whole team was involved in one way or another, and we all pulled together to bring this little Panzer I back to life. 2025 is shaping up to be an even more incredible year, with some phenomenal projects planned. But that's all we have time for today. On behalf of the entire team at AusArmour, we hope you all had a safe and Merry Christmas and wish you a Happy New Year. So until next time, I'm Kurt from AusArmour, and I'll see you on the next one.